Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to another adventure into the sonic possibilities of the Surface Pro 4. Today we're looking at virtual instruments, or more specifically the new version of the Arturia V Collection. The V Collection is a stunning selection of 17 awesome vintage synths, pianos, organs and other noise-making machines. The new version revamps the interface, making it very resizable and beautiful and just a sort of a fabulous thing to work with. So this isn't really a review of the V Collection because I simply just adore it, but rather it's a demonstration of the potential of it running on the Surface Pro 4. So how well is that going to go? Let's have a look. So here we are, welcome back to the lab. This is my Surface Pro 4 that I've kind of flattened out so that I can film it from the top with this camera here. I've broken out the big keyboard this time with my Control 49 here. And the audio is all running through my Avid Fast Track Duo. I don't know if you saw my last video where I talked a lot about some problems I was having with glitches and pops in certain bits of software. So with that in mind, what I'm doing this time is, rather than recording the sound that the Surface is making through my little microphone here or through the microphone on the video camera, I've taken the outputs via these cables directly to my other computer there to record the signal direct and pure and dry. So if there is any misbehavior, if there are any clicks or pops, you should be able to hear them yourself. But a quick spoiler, it's actually been really well behaved, which is awesome. So in the V Collection there's 17 synths. Let's have a quick look. Now I think you agree that that is just a stunning selection of sound sources. I mean, wow, 17 different synths and organs and pianos and general weirdness, but the range and the quality of those sounds is extraordinary. I mean, it's just an awesome bunch of stuff. And it's all modelled on real hardware, and it's all kind of endorsed by the original manufacturers as well. I mean, Arturia were the first people to come out with a mini Moog that was actually liked and endorsed and encouraged by Moog themselves, who allowed them to use the name directly. You know, they've done a phenomenal job on putting these together. And the new version, this is a brand new revamped version where they've redesigned the interface, is just brilliant. It looks fantastic. There's something about the aesthetic of all these instruments which just takes it to another level. I mean, it's all very well just having some knobs and sliders on the screen, but when they look this good and this touchable, did you notice that? Did you notice the touching I was doing? I mean, that's pretty key to this and pretty key to why the Surface Pro 4, with all that potential bubbling away under here, could be the perfect match for a bunch of instruments like this. Let me show you what I mean. Let's open up something like the Sen. That's a good one, because it's got nice fat knobs, and we always like a good fat knob. Now, the touchableness of the Arturia interface is really quite interesting. You can play the keyboard, and you can play the keyboard properly, not just sliding your finger. You can actually touch notes, except there's a slight problem in that the notes stick sometimes, a bit like that. However, in the area of knobs and stuff, I have complete and utter multi-touch control. Multi-touch, that's three things, four things, running out of fingers, 5 things at once that I could be moving. You know, whatever you can get your fingers on, it works. I mean, there's nothing better than reaching out and touching a synthesizer. I mean, I could have done that with the mouse, but it would have been much harder, much less creative, much more oh and ooh and, you know, slower. Whereas this is immediately interactive, immediately creative, and there under my fingers. Oh, it's just joyful. And all of the Arturia Collection interfaces are the same. They're the same level of touchiness. Now, the touch isn't quite perfect. For instance, the menus can be really hard to bring up or put away again. But I mean, for instance, I can see, I'm going to have to use a mouse to get rid of that menu. Click away. I can select presets, which is good, but I can't pick them up from the list quite so easily. See, a lovely list here. I can't make that work. Hold it. No, this over the side. No. No, and then I can't make the menu go away again, so I can't use anything else while that menu's up. So I have to get into the mouse and put that away. So, as you can see, it's not perfectly touchable, and in some ways that kind of gives me the impression that Arturia probably don't know how touchable their stuff is. In fact, it was probably a byproduct of the libraries they were using when they were coding the thing. But the point is that it is immensely touchable, even if it's not quite perfect. And maybe, if we start making a bit of noise, Arturia will do something about it to just push it that little bit further, because that would be awesome. Now, there is one thing that I should point out, and that is our beloved pen here has absolutely no use whatsoever. What I mean is exactly that. It has no function. No function. It doesn't play the keyboard. It doesn't select menus. It doesn't move any of the knobs. Nothing. Not a squidge. Does it do anything with the other end? No. Nothing. Do I hold it? No. Nothing happens. Try using a button. No, there ain't nothing going on. So we can forget all about the pen in this situation. But actually that's okay, because the size of the interface is such that you don't need the pen. You can actually reach out and touch all of the parameters, all of the knobs, all of the controls with your fat fudgy fingers. Because one of the things they've got built in here is this resize window thing, which goes from 60% up to 200%. And it's absolutely brilliant. So 60% looks a bit like this. I can still touch the knobs, but it's a bit tricky. Of course it's a bit tricky. So let's put that up to 200%. Now that's a bit more like it. I can really get myself stuck in there. Or several people could get themselves stuck in there all at once. Ooh. It's just brilliant. The one thing with the resizing though is that different bits of software scale things differently. So I'm running this as standalone at the moment, so I can just put it to the size I want it to be. But then when you open it up as a plugin in another piece of software, it might suddenly be really huge or it might suddenly be really small. It's just a thing. I don't know why I'm bothering telling you. But there we go. But I'm finding that generally speaking, for the Surface Pro 4, the best size is about 140%. That just about gives everything on screen at a good, decent size. Let's have a quick look at one of the newer additions to this version, the Synclavier. Now, I don't know anything about this. I should have looked it up, really, and told you something really interesting about the Synclavier, other than the fact that it's an awesome name that I remember from my youth, when it was sort of a digital thing, early sampling, that kind of thing. I don't really know. But there's definitely something beautifully 80s going on in here. And as with all of these Arturia synths, it has special powers hidden behind a panel. Let's have a look. I'll tap this button here. That sometimes works. Tap it again. Yeah, there we go. I got this whole other panel with all sorts of other stuff on which I don't know how to use. But that's not everything. This has extra secret bonus powers in the shape of something called the screen. The screen. Go on. Oh, see, I got it and then I got rid of it again. There we go. This screen, which is like an old VDU. And I can get my fingers in here, move that about. It's actually a bit easier if I use the mouse at this point, but I can draw in fabulous things there on different partials. What's going on? I don't have the foggiest, but it looks and sounds amazing, and that's kind of what you're after, isn't it, in a software synth? Yeah, I think so. Now, it's not all about synths. It's also about some other things as well. And one of the new instruments in this collection is the piano. Now, this is quite an extraordinary thing. I mean, the intensity of this thing, the space in which they place it, all the different, the sounds of the stuff going on and the mechanics within the grand piano, which seems to all be there, is extraordinary. It's an awesome piece of work. It's also pretty CPU intensive. Now, the Surface Pro 3, my old friend, was never that good at playing big synths. It would crumble, quickly, because the processor would get hot and then it would clock down and you'd be into terrible, glitchy nightmareness. Surface Pro 4 seems to be better at that. However, it's kind of a function of mobile technology. So it's not really designed to be doing masses of computations and really hard maths, flying by the seat of its pants, kind of with its hair on fire, trying to create these notes and these nuances in these huge impulse spaces. And so basically it kind of just sort of craps out. But on the Surface Pro 4, it has a bit of headroom and it can do it. I mean, you might hear some clicks as we go through it, and I will force it to crap out as well. But on the whole, it sounds pretty nice. Let's have a look. It has a CPU meter down here, which on the piano is always much higher than it is on any other synths. And it's when I introduce a sustain pedal, things start to get a little bit dicey. But that's all sounding pretty good. It's genuinely sounding pretty good. There's no clicks and pops that I can hear. It is absolutely operating as a grand piano on the Surface Pro 4, sounding fabulous. Now if I do a bit of this, I can force it to crap out. Oh, ouch. See, I've really broken it now. So what I was doing, I was feeding far too much polyphony and voices into it, to the point that it overloaded and it couldn't cope and it could no longer produce the sound. Hopefully, let's come back again now. It's a beautiful piano, and it's not the only one. Oh, there might have been a glitch. But you have control over where the microphones are, what sort of room it's in. You've got velocity curves and master EQ and all sorts of stuff going on. It's very comprehensive and intense piano. The Stage 73 is also an excellent electric piano. I love this one in particular. Just lovely, and you can open the lid, I think, and there's all sorts of things in there you can mess about with. Awesome. Let's get back to the analog lab. Now, the lab takes all of the instruments and stuffs them inside a single interface. So you have here on this beautifully rendered picture of all the actual bits of hardware, you can select any of those and play them directly without actually launching the GUI for the real thing. So for instance, I can tap on the Moog on the front here with a bit of luck and select it. Duh! There we go. And it gives me that horrible horrible default preset, which is supposed to say Arturia. Can you hear that? That's terrible. Why did they do that? That's just awful. Let's move it to something which actually makes sense. See, that sounds like a Moog. And then on these 6 knobs here and 8 or 9 sliders, however much there are, they scatter all of the parameters for that particular synth. Not all of them, but a selection of. And you can change those as well. So if I want something else there, I can just click on the text and then select it from the menu. Except I can't, because that's part of the touch that doesn't really work. Does it work with a pen? No, it doesn't work with a pen. Of course it doesn't work with a pen. We knew that already. But I now can't get out of this particular menu without using the mouse. There we go. So it's kind of like frustratingly nearly, damn it, perfect. Except for a couple of those little touchy things. You know, otherwise you could use it just as a tablet in tablet mode, like I'm using it now, but without the keyboard attached. You could just have the tablet sitting there and tap on it and everything would be perfect. You can't quite do that yet. We have to take the keyboard with us. Well, you know, that's actually a small thing in the greater scheme of things. You can then select another one from in here with your finger, with a bit of luck. No, not so much. Select it with the mouse then. And that's a CS80 I've selected over there, I think. Well, let me get that one. There we go. The other thing the Analog Lab is there's a complete library of all the presets. If we get into the preset bit, let me in, you bastard. No, it's not going to do it. Okay, let's click on it here. Now within here you can search for whatever sound you like, and they're all in here. They're all listed, starting at the bottom and going all the way to the top. You can sometimes select a preset like this, but just not always. But this has 5,334 presets. Now there's one neat feature in the Analog Lab, which is that you can combine 2 patches into a bit of a multi. So you do that over here by clicking on this, and you've now created this 2-part instrument, and it wants me to drag another preset over there. So if I go for something like keys, how about a warm whirly from the whirly piano? So we've got that together. Let's turn that one down a little bit. That's pretty nice. You've also got effects in here, so you can add, you know, a chorus or a delay, something along those sorts of lines, and then you've got send A and send B here. Like that. It's just brilliant. It's a lovely way of combining two things, and with two instruments going, Surface Pro 4 can still handle that, mostly. Although combining instruments is the best way to get it to crackle. So the next question is then, can I use a bunch of these synths to create some kind of track? Well, yeah, let's give that a go. So Bitwig then, because that's going to be my best chance of getting glitch-free performance out of the Surface Pro 4. And in this project here, I've got loaded the Synclavier, the SEM, the CS80, the Stage 73, and the Minimoog. 5 synths. That's pretty good. Let's have a quick listen. I mean, obviously, they're not banging out tons of voices all at once, because that's not really how you write music. You tend to have something which is a bit paddy, something which is a bit tinkly, some bleepy bleepies going on. You don't tend to be doing orchestral size, polyphony, voice type projects. Well, you may be, but if you are doing big orchestral things, the Surface Pro 4 is probably not for you. So actually, running a bunch of synths together into some kind of tune is not going to be too hard for the Surface Pro 4, which is great. Let's try the same song in a couple of other bits of software, just as a comparison. Okay, Ableton Live, same project going on. Let's try and get my fingers into those tiny little bits. So it was alive fine. Up here it was like 17 to 20% CPU, which is cool. So that's doing fine. I could probably run stuff alongside if I tried hard enough. Yeah, well anyway, you don't want to sit here listening to me making silly noises. Suffice to say, Ableton Live also works very well. 5 synths running, no problem. You know, that stage piano as well is quite a massive one, so it's not as if it's just piddly little synths that are running. These are quite big stuff. Let's try Cubase. Plug my dongle in. Cubase, of course, isn't a loop-based program particularly. It's a nice timeline-based, straightforward, you know, in a straight line type of thing. So I've just laid out the project in a linear fashion. Let's see how this sounds. Asio Guard is off because that's how we know that it works better, having gone through our huge mega test on the previous video. Don't know what I'm talking about, go and check out the other video. So Asio Guard is off, and that seems really well behaved. Now I should say that yesterday was a much hotter day than it is when I'm filming this evening, and I ran into some issues which I believe were to do purely with heat, because once the back of the surface gets too hot, it will start to clock down, and that can cause glitches and pops. So previously when I tested this, it was a little bit hit and miss. It was a bit, you know, it went alright, oh, and then it didn't, and then it started glitching a lot and a lot and a lot, and you had to sort of go away, have a cup of tea, come back, and then it would sort of recover. So that's something to watch out for, but that's less to do with something weird going on in the Surface Pro 4 and everything to do with the way the Intel technology and the speed stepping works. But in this case, as you can see, it's nice. I love the delay on an electric piano. It's awesome. I love it. So that's all good then. One thing I should mention is that after the mega test I did a complete reinstall of Windows and everything on this Surface Pro 4, and so I hadn't got through all of the tweaks yet. I've done the regular tweaks, just not all of them. And when I first sort of started up some of the Arturia synths, I was kind of hitting glitching problems more or less straight away, even in Bitwig, which is completely unexpected. And so I had a little dig around and I found there's one particular thing that I hadn't done, and I'd like to share that with you now, just in case it's something that I haven't spoken of before. I don't think this is in the other Windows tweaks video I did, so this could be quite important. And this is all to do with the high performance power scheme. Now I know you might have already set that, but there's some specifics in there that also need to be set that are not readily available. This is what I mean. Tap and hold in the corner, go to power options. Should be on high performance, that's great. Go to change plan settings. Go to change advanced power settings. Now here in this window, you may not have very many options. And if you don't, there's a registry tweak that you have to make in order to have all of these options appear. So tap again on the start button, type reg edit, and that'll run the registry editor. Now in here under, let's go all the way back to the top so you can see this. Under H key local machine, go down to system, open that one up, current control set, open that up, control, all the way down to power. Click on that. On the right hand side you will see a bunch of stuff. One of them is called CS enabled, which is this one here, and that by default is set to 1. What that needs to be is 0. Put it to 0 and it will reveal all of the settings in the high performance window option thingy. So set that to 0, click OK, close the registry editor, reboot, quite important, come back to your high performance setting, and you have a lot more stuff to look at. You only need 1 or 2 settings, but they end up being quite vital. So what I did, and after I did this, everything sorted itself out again. So it must be important. So the ones I went into were, don't need that at all. So hard disk, turn off hard disk after, never. You don't ever want the hard disk to turn off. I mean, all these things in here are to do with shutting the system down so that the battery lasts longer and the system is working less hard, so it becomes more mobile. We don't want that. We want power all the time, please. Thanks very much. So hard disk, don't turn off. No, bad thing. So let's do that one. Next one is the USB settings. And that says selective suspend setting needs to be disabled. You don't want USB ports turning themselves off. Again, it's trying to power save. We don't want that. We've got things plugged in that we need plugged in all the time, and we don't want the USB port sitting there thinking, should I turn myself off? We don't want that. Set that to disabled. The only other one down here to look at is processor power management. Now this gives you a minimum and maximum state. Now what's interesting here is that I have this set to 90%. And that's interesting because it's been working really well. So what I would normally do on a desktop in a normal situation, I would set the minimum and maximum processor state to 100% so that it's always on, always maximum, all the time. That's really what you want. However, with the Surface Pro 3 as well as the Surface Pro 4, that sometimes running at 100% means that it's going to hit that temperature level much quicker and so start to clock down, which is what we don't want. We don't want that throttling effect which sends crackles into everything. So, sort of running a little bit of a theory here that if I keep it off the full 100%, then it's not going to get all the way up to that sort of turbo frequency, and so perhaps is not going to heat up quite so much, and so perhaps is not going to start throttling or clocking down. It's an interesting theory. I've seen gamers talk about it in how to get good frame rates in running a particular game is to prevent the CPU from hitting that top and clocking down. So when I was playing with this yesterday, this is something that I did, and I've left it at it, and maybe that's why it's been so well behaved now. Could be. I'm going to keep experimenting with that. So I've set mine to 90%, and that equates to about 2.3 gigahertz. Now the processor is rated to run at 2.4 with a turbo up to 2.9. So I've restricted it to 2.3. So I've lost a tiny bit of performance, but hopefully I've gained a lot more headroom in terms of temperature, and that I should be able to run more stuff simultaneously before that throttling kicks in. Am I making any sense? Is this making any sense to you? I'm going with it anyway, so you put what you like in there, all right? So that's just a quick tip. Right, back on with the show. So to finish off, what I'm going to try to do is take the little song ditty thing that I created with the 5 Arturia synths and add some extra stuff and work on it a bit and see if I can produce it into a bit of a track. And let's see if the Surface Pro 4 can handle that. That'll be fun. So that's pretty much got to the peak of the Surface Pro 4. So what do I have going on there? Well, I've got 5 quite intensive Arturia synths. I've got 2 guitar tracks with amplitude 4 running on each. I've got a vocal track with reverb running on it. And over the top, I've got this immense movement plugin, which is probably doing it all in. If I take this out, I wonder what difference it would make to that performance graph. So there you are, that's sort of built up a bit of a track within Bitwig. I'm probably using up about 40% of the CPU when I'm not running some massive plugin. And it's looking pretty awesome. Maybe I can try something else, maybe something from Image Line, like Gross Beat. That's really silly. Back to you. All right then, how about that? That was pretty good, wasn't it? Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. Surface Pro 4 working like kind of we assumed that it would, like it always should have. Working well, coping with big, large instruments and playing back stuff. People are always asking me how many synths can the Surface Pro 4 run or the Surface Pro 3 run. How many can they do, Robin? They say. How many? I've got this project. Will that work on the Surface? I'm using this many instruments. Will they work on the Surface? It's never a question that I can properly answer, but however, I hope that this has been a little bit of a demonstration as to what you could run. You can't run masses of synths. It's not that sort of computer. You can run a good, solid handful, and the ones that I showed here are pretty intense. You know, the Arturia ones are not particularly shy of using CPU power when you're getting up to high numbers of voices and polyphony. So as I think I've shown, the Surface Pro 4 coped with that pretty darn well. You could, I believe, use the Surface Pro 4 as a sound source for playing live. You could load up a couple within Analog Lab and have them mapped across your keyboard, and you could start going from there. Certainly you could use it as a single synth. I mean, when you think about all the fuss made of the Model 15 Moog synth on the iPad Pro, that's given you up to 4 voices with a single instrument. On the Surface Pro 4, I could run a ton. I can play piano properly. I could run a mini Moog and the Moog modular all at the same time. So the potential for creative music making and performance on the Surface Pro 4 is finally starting to come through, and I am just so pleased about that. I'm getting buzzed by Eurofighters again. Hello! It's not been completely perfect. You do get the odd crackle in the background when you're playing. I mean, that's a lot to do with the Arturia audio engine and how well that's working with the Surface Pro 4. However, running it in Bitwig, I had no trouble at all. So it's all about choosing the right bit of software, and then the problems just seem to fade away. The ability to touch and tweak all of those synths with your hands while you're playing is just amazing. That's exactly what I've been looking for and exactly what I like to see. This is why I was attracted to the Surface in the first place. This kind of control, this kind of usability, the creativity of using a touchscreen with real bits of software, with real virtual instruments. Is there such a thing, a real virtual instrument? Anyway, you know what I mean. That side of it, the touchy tweaky sounds, creativity. Yes, that's what we want. So I hope that's been useful to you. Obviously I'll put that track up as an iTunes download for £10 a copy, so please pop over there and get yourself a bit more of that awesome singing and playing that I do. And in the meantime, go and make some of your own tunes.